Hey everyone. As we get into the holiday season, I know for me it's a time where I slow down in my business, I unplug, and spend more time with family. I thought this quieter time would be a really great time to re release some of our most popular episodes on the podcast. And I've hand selected these episodes not just because they're the most popular, but also I wanted to pick some that I thought would be really good for this season as we close out 2023 and start thinking about 2024 and moving into what is to come next year. So I hope you enjoy these rewind and re-listen episodes. Also, if you're interested in being a guest on the Be Bold, Make Waves podcast, go to lauracomark.com/guest. All right. Let's sit back and enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Bold, Make Waves podcast, a show bringing you inspiring stories of women who are growing and scaling their business. I'm your host, Laura Comark, a website and tech integration specialist who works with online business owners who love their work and not their website. Join me as we have incredible conversations about business, mindset, productivity, and of course, the website and tech behind the business. Let's go ahead and dive in to this week's episode. Hello and welcome everyone to today's show. For those of you who don't already know me, my name is Laura Comark. I'm a website and tech integration specialist who works with coaches and consultants that love their work and not their website. I'm so excited for my guest today, Alecia St. Germain. Alecia is a certified immunity to change coach and founder of The Conscious Edge, a leadership and personal development company focused on empowering female entrepreneurs. After training more than 10,000 real estate entrepreneurs, Alecia knows the strategies and tactics are only a small part of creating wealth and happiness. Merging methods of science and spirituality, she helps her clients uncover and transform their unconscious blocks so they can confidently make money, reclaim their time, and step boldly into their roles as leaders. Alecia, I'm so excited to have you today. Welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Can you start off by sort of telling our listeners a little bit more about what you do and how you got into this line of business?
So my journey started out as being a real estate investor, and I had the fortunate opportunity of training other adults how to be real estate investors as well. So I've always been in the entrepreneurial space most of my life, or most of my adult life. And one of the things I noticed in training so many people is that they could have the best techniques, the best strategies, and they could not get themselves up to the plate, even though they literally had the keys to the kingdom to create wealth. And it got me really interested in what is going on behind the scenes. So I came across a coaching methodology based in psychology, and it perfectly explained, like, oh, this is why people are struggling. And so I really, that launched me into a completely different business, completely different direction. People thought I was crazy. Like, oh my gosh, you have everything that looks good on paper. But my soul was like calling to me, like, you're meant for more. You're meant to really upgrade people on another level. So I became a certified immunity to change coach and started my business, a new business in coaching people. And my passion has just evolved to female entrepreneurs because I've always had that space in my heart. Even in real estate, I was helping females and really had that soft spot for females. But like, I just think we get to be wealthy.
Oh, I love that.
So that's where I am.
Can you explain a little bit what immunity to change is?
So immunity to change is this concept that our brain is like an immune system, and an immune system is a beautiful thing, right? It protects us. But there are situations in immune systems where the body will actually start to attack itself. So much like an immune system, our brain has self-protection. And it was designed because, like, primally, that's how we stayed alive. That's how we evolved, because we don't have the same defense mechanisms that other creatures in the world have. No horns, no spitting venom. It was really our brain. And one of the things to do is hide or fight or be silly. And what they do, they call fawn. Like we look at them as trauma responses. And so when you perceive that something you're doing, some big goal, something you're excited about is dangerous on the unconscious level, the brain says, ooh, you know what? This doesn't feel safe. This feels a little familiar to maybe fourth grade or third grade when that girl made fun of us or whatever it was. I think we should go watch Netflix and take a nap, or I think we should go clean something because there's something else way more important. So it's a way that the brain self-protects. And that's what we call that we have this immunity to change because we're uncomfortable with changing our behavior in a way that feels risky based on our previous experience. So that's part of the work that I do, a significant part, but other things as well we can do to address that. But it's really about overturning that and getting your unconscious in alignment with what you want now as an adult, someone who's out there working on your mission.
So I've been working with you as my mindset coach since I believe it was around March of 2021.
Yep.
And I know for me, the thing that kind of held me back was this, like the scary part of being visible. And so what that translated to is not wanting to email my list, not wanting to publish anything on social, not because that felt scary. And we discovered that's my immunity trying to say, hey, this is scary. So I'm going to go do other things like clean or procrastinate. I do a lot of that too. And so in working with you and identifying that was what it was and how we can overcome that was really just, it was mind blowing for me.
Aw, that's the best part of it. And it's really about doing it. There's lots of ways to do it. But what I love about it is the immunity to change methodology is that we identify ways of retraining the brain that what used to feel unsafe is no longer unsafe. And we do it in very slow, small steps in ways that aren't going to trigger you to, run away, so to say, or whatever it is you normally might do when you're afraid of something like procrastinate.
Yep. When something feels scary. So how are you working with people now? What are you doing?
I run a group program, actually called People Pleaser to Powerhouse Entrepreneur, because I do tend to work with a lot of people pleasers, which I was very resistant to using the word people pleaser because I thought it was weak. And here's the thing I have learned. I'm a people pleaser. And I'm Alecia. I'm a people pleaser. And here's what I've learned. There is no part of people pleasing that is weak. The amount of grit that it takes and resilience that it takes to keep showing up to help others. And there's so many beautiful parts that come from being a people pleaser. You're sensitive, you're empathetic, you understand the needs of other people and their emotions, sometimes even better than they do. Where we get trapped is that we try to control other people's emotions. So we do a lot around setting boundaries, and we talk a lot about really being responsible for our own actions and our own feelings, but not other people. So it's really powerful. It affects people. I feel like I'm going off on a tangent here, but
it's okay.
It affects people in ways like not charging enough for whatever your services are. Even if you're making money in your business and you're doing well, I think there's a point where people know this is not sustainable for me. It looks like working way more hours on things and going outside of, I think, what you call scope creep, going outside of what was contracted and doing more. And it can show up in a lot of different ways, like burnout and undercharging, procrastinating. So there's a lot of things that we do in the program to work through that.
Oh, and then they get to come out on the other side.
the other side. Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
it's a beautiful thing right there. I love
Yeah.
that so
Yeah.
much.
Coming out as really leaders, becoming the leaders of their business, really where they're setting the standards of what it looks like to work with them, and really that self-worth piece that gets to
Yeah.
come out.
Oh, absolutely. Setting those boundaries and being comfortable to set the boundaries and understanding your value and your worth, that's huge. I mean, I see that so often with friends, colleagues, clients, even that they're not willing to, they don't understand their value and their worth, and they want to help everyone. But how to help someone else by lowering your cost, what's that doing to you?
Right.
And what's that doing to your business? It's not
Right.
sustainable. And I've been guilty of that. Absolutely.
Exactly. We all have. We
Yeah.
all have. It's how we are trained. And I really think women are societally trained to serve
Mhm.
and to put yourself last.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is the transformation that happens when you learn to really take care of your own needs. So there's an element of self-care and what you need to sustain your business, where you can actually show up better for other people in your life, whether they're your clients or your family or your friends, whoever it is, you actually can show up better. But there's a retraining that has to happen.
Oh, I love that. I would love to talk to you a little bit about some tech things, just because I am a website and tech lover. And we actually originally met because you were referred to
I
me
hired you for my tech. Yeah,
for your
exactly.
tech and your website. So I would love to know, like, before we had worked together, talk to me about like that first website that you had. How did you build that yourself? Did you hire someone? I want to talk about that a
Okay,
little.
so that's super funny. So I had one of these hangups, and a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're first getting started in something where they feel like they have to have a website in order to be legitimate.
Mhm.
And if anybody is listening to this who's just starting out, please, 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 you do not need to have a website. Unless you are driving traffic to
Mhm.
that website as a way of acquiring leads, nobody is seeing your website. And even if they're going and checking you out to see if you're legit, if that's like a whole leadership thing, like you get to show up and lead people, and who you are as a person, your charisma, your what you have to offer, your mission, your heart, that is what people are buying. They are not buying your website. So number one, I have to say that, please. So I felt like I had to have a website or I wasn't legit, because I
Mhm.
have a perfectionist, like looking good conversation that my little unconscious likes to talk in the back of my head. And I hired someone to teach me to build a website rather than just hiring someone to build the website. And it really came from feeling like I needed to have control. So I couldn't even tell you what I did. She set up some of it for me. She showed me how to run it. And it felt like everything was piecemealed together. And so part of why I hired you was because I was spending too much time building the website and not enough time doing the thing I'm gifted at, which is coaching.
Yeah.
Which is so many people. So many people do that. Like, stay in your lane, do what you're gifted at. Hire someone like Laura to build your website when you actually know what your offer is.
Yes. I think that's such a key point right there, is that, and I see this all the time where people are so focused on, like, designing their own logo for this first website so they can launch their business. I'm like, no one cares what your logo looks like. No, it doesn't matter. Just go get clients. Go figure out what it is, because your offer is going to change. It's going to tweak around. You're going to do pivots. You're going to figure it out as you go along. And once you figure out what you're doing, what you're offering, and it's validated, which just means people are buying it, that's when you can go back and say, okay, now I'm ready. I'm really clear on what I offer, the magic and transformation I bring to my clients, and I'm ready to have a website that reflects that.
Yeah. And then you hire someone like Laura who can do it and do an amazing job.
Oh,
I always felt like my tech was like, I had a vision for what the customer experience was going to be like. And then my execution was like left of center. And then when you did it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is even better than my vision.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
But seriously, no, it's true.
What, I'm going to go back to talking about your business now.
Yeah.
We've talked about the tech. I love all that. What were some of the fears and doubts that you had when you first were starting out in your business?
So that's really interesting because when I started my business, because I had already had a business, and I've seen this happen over and over again with people who have had success in their life, and then they like do a second act. You think it's going to be easy. Like, oh, I hired a coach. Number one, I hired a coach because I had this moment where like I knew I had the coaching certification, but I did not know how to get clients. And so I knew I needed support, and I found a coach that was going to help me learn to attract clients. So number one, like you have to invest in hiring coaches and I've had coaches the entire time I've had business, different levels of coaches. But I think where my fear really set in is it was harder than I thought, and it took longer than I thought it should. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I actually supposed to do this? But one of the things that has always supported me was realizing that there's something bigger than myself, that I am here for something more than it. And I would always go like, please God, oh my gosh, just send me some confirmation. I'm supposed to do this. Like every time something didn't work, and I can tell you I've failed so many times. And then I'd like get an email from a client who's like, oh my gosh, this worked. Thank you so much. This is so great. Or I just always got that immediate thing. And I think, I don't mean to be like, no, I'll just go there. Like, I'm definitely a very spiritual person, and having that faith and knowing that the struggle is part of the process, I think has carried me through it. But I definitely had my fears that, I wasn't like, it wasn't going to work.
Oh, I love that so much. The struggle is part of the process.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Because it is. And that's the thing I feel that not everyone talks about.
Well, and here's the thing I would say is if you were handed a business, all the business you ever wanted, and you were not the leader that was ready to take on that business, it would crumble. And so every single challenge that you go through is part of your growth. And it's like you're being called to go through this real life leveling up in order to be the leader that can actually hold the amount of business that you desire. Yes. So it's happening for you. The struggle is happening for you.
I heard something really interesting years ago that stuck with me that was talking about launches. And how when you do your first launch of something, it's just like having your first baby, and it goes through all the steps of childhood where it's like a newborn, it's messy, you're trying to figure out what's going on. Like it typically a first launch is not this like overnight success, but also the importance of that first launch is getting the back end set up and having everything in place, and then you just keep relaunching it and keep relaunching it, keep relaunching it, tweak as needed. And then it goes through it goes from the infant stage to the toddler stage and it'll just keep growing. And again, if that first launch was this huge success and thousands of people joined, you wouldn't be ready for that. You wouldn't be prepared. It doesn't work.
Everybody would see the typo in the emails, or they wouldn't get the welcome letter, or whatever is happening on the back end. And you'd have this big mess to clean up. So it's like you're only sent what you can handle.
Exactly.
And so you have to keep stepping through it over and over and over again, trusting that this is your purpose. This is your thing you're supposed to do. Even if it doesn't look exactly like what you envision, I always find the theme stays the same, the theme of what you're supposed to do.
Ooh, can we dive into that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So more recently in my journey, so there's always an evolution that happens. And more recently on my journey, I was like searching for some kind of profile to bring into my program. And I was like, looking at, DISC and some of the more corporate stuff. And I've never worked in corporate. I've always been like, no, corporate's not for me. I don't like to be told what to do. For a very short time, I was a respiratory therapist, and I was like, no, I don't like working for someone else. And so I started looking at more spiritually based ones like human design and anagram. And I was like, nope, those aren't right. And years ago, I'd had something called a soul profile read for me, and it's based on your name. And this name that you're given at birth by your parents, like whatever you believe, God, spirit, something higher than yourself, gives your parents your name, and encoded in your name is your soul destiny. And included with that are challenges, talents, goals, like what you're here for. And so as I found this person gave me this reading years ago, Ariella Indigo, and then this opportunity came up to get certified. And I was like, again, this is the universe, like telling me this is your path. So I'm certified. And as I'm doing readings for every single one of my clients, and we're kind of merging the spiritual piece, there's always a theme that comes forward for people, whether it's like they're an excellent communicator and they're meant to be a speaker or a writer, or someone who's meant to be a healer, or someone who's, and even if it's like they're a coach, there's a certain level of healing that people get from coaching, or they're a therapist, or there's someone who is, meant to be a nurturer or a mother or whatever it is. Like there are certain things that come forward, and they're always so true for people. And I would say some people get like a big breakthrough in like an aha, like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. But a lot of people get like, oh, you know what? I used to believe that about myself. And then that's where society gets in the way. Our, experiences we had as a child get in the way, and we create that immune system. So it's really cool to see like this merge between like what you're destined to do, and then what is put on you by society, what you learn. And then we go through this whole process of like unraveling that and like putting it together in your business and helping you be the leader. And so I didn't know my business would take that turn. Like even just a year ago, I would say about a year ago, I kind of always knew, like when I had my reading done, oh, I'd love to have this in my program. Just didn't know it was an option.
Right.
So it'll always look different as you evolve, is my point.
That's so cool. I love that. I love the different themes. How you can help someone see what that theme is.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, we did a reading recently and it came up, teaching was my theme.
Yep.
And so now I'm working on looking at big picture at my business and seeing how that direction,
what you know now, and everything that you have learned up to this point is for that purpose.
Yeah.
So none of it's wasted. Your time in anything you've ever done is never wasted. Teaching is a theme for me too. So when I look back at my life, when I was a respiratory therapist, I became a clinical instructor. When I was a real estate investor, I became a trainer. Then I became a coach, so it's the same. Yeah. For me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. When I was in corporate, I was kind of the go-to person who would help train. I would help when people had questions on things and they would come to me and I would help train them and teach them sort of like, here's how you do it. I didn't do it for them, but I would walk them through on the phone with them, and we would do a share screen because this is back before like video calls. But we could do a share screen and talk on the phone, and I would just walk them through, click here, do this, go check this. And
yeah. Well, and I would say to listeners, like, look back at your life, look at everything that you've ever done in your life. There are clues. There is a theme of something that you always did, and people always came to you for, or you were always good at, and whether it was creativity or writing or teaching or advice or whatever it was, there's a theme. If you look back, and your past gives clues.
Oh, I love that. I think it's so cool. I love all that stuff. So I would love to know, what would you say is something you're doing that's being very bold in your industry? Something that's a little different.
Well, I think merging like the spiritual and the science is definitely bold. Like it feels uncomfortable. And I'm okay with that. Like I've just learned to be okay with being uncomfortable. And so that would be definitely a piece, because I think people oftentimes will like stick to a certain path and like, this is the way it's always been done, so this is the way I'm going to do it. But I saw a different way. And so merging that different systems, like a system within the spiritual world called soul purpose, and then the immunity to change, which is within the coaching industry and psychology based. And what's really cool is I think there's room for all of it. Anybody who says to me, like, there's one right way to do things, so I'm like, okay, you're missing out, you know? And so when you get to be creative like that, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Pick the way you want to do it.
Yeah. And then coming out to everybody, right? Being visible about it. That's, I think, from so many entrepreneurs, is like, there's so many people who have great ideas and then they don't take action on them. And the number one thing is that visibility, because with visibility comes the possibility of criticism.
Yep.
And not being liked and being ostracized.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so much of what we deal with in the coaching, the immunity to change coaching. And it's part of the people pleasing, right? I don't want people to know, I don't want to step outside the line, because if I do, then something bad will happen to me.
I might ruffle some feathers.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think definitely being out there and just being all of myself is bold.
What would you say that and I feel like this ties very closely to what you just said, but what would you say you're most proud of when it comes to your business?
I'm most proud of the difference that I make for other people. Like being able to, I just talked to a woman earlier today and seeing her cry and like really honestly see herself as something more and being worthy. Like when I see a client break through the worthiness piece and feeling worthy of their business or achieving a goal to whatever it is, seeing the success of my clients is the thing I'm most proud of. And being able to be a part of that success feels just so good.
I love that. Yeah, your sessions have always been such a like safe and warm and caring environment. I know we all joke within the program, like bring your tissues, because it gets real. It gets real. It gets deep. You just keep peeling away those onion layers, but holding like a really safe space to be vulnerable.
And that's the interesting thing is like, I never set out to of course I set the container to be safe, but I never thought that would be something that came forward for people until I did a bunch of testimonials for the website, right? I'm like, got to go get testimonials. So I do a bunch of testimonials and every single person said like, this is a safe place. And I thought, oh my God, that's cool. Like amazing that I've made it safe for people, but it wasn't something I intentionally set out to do. And I realized how many people, that's why this coaching is so powerful, is because it does make people feel safe. And so much of what we do out in the world and being with other people, I realize how unsafe people feel.
Well, and also like looking at the online business space, which a lot of us are all in, you start off and unless you're hiring someone right off the bat for a coach, you're doing it all alone in the beginning.
Yeah.
And you're figuring it out. You're kind of on your own. Your family, friends don't understand what you do because they don't live in this little online ecosystem, the bubble that we all live in. And it's lonely and it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like one of the reasons I really wanted to create this podcast, because I know I felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until probably like the end of 2020 where I like found my people and started investing in more programs and coaching. And that next year in 21, I was able to find support that I had been missing out on. And that was what I really needed in my business, was getting more support and places where I could go when I feel scared or when I need advice or I'm unsure of what to do. And I just need a safe space to bounce ideas off of. And finding that was just game changing for me.
Yeah, your community is so important for especially for females. Like we just need to be in community. But also I think you hit on a really good point around investing versus so many people look at things as an expense. And I just don't see anything that you're investing in. Your website is an investment. It is not a cost because it helps you get more clients. Once you know how to use it, like once you have a strategy around it, it helps you to build the relationship and create an experience. We use the tech. You set up the tech for our community, and we do so many cool things that make it so high touch because of the tech. We have a specific purpose for it now, and being able to give people personalized coaching that's housed right in a portal for them, which is I'm in love with, and it's super cool. But it's this idea that when you are spending money in your business, it is not an expense. It is an investment. And if you don't think that you can make that investment back, then what are you doing in your business? You know what I mean? If I'm just going to spend $5,000 or $3,000 on coaching or building out a membership or whatever it is, if I don't think I can get a client to pay for that, then I've got a self-belief problem.
Yep.
And so it's shifting your mind from that expense that it's gone to it's an investment that will return tenfold.
Yeah. I mean, investing in coaching with you has gotten me from never emailing my list to being visible.
Being regular. And doing a podcast
and doing a podcast. Like, can you get more visible? I probably could. I could go on TV.
Well, but see, visibility is like people. So if we redefine visibility, it's like people can hear your voice.
Yes.
And really yours wasn't even so much visibility. Remember, it was like that your voice didn't matter.
My voice didn't matter. Yep.
So, and what does that do for your business? That brings more clients. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, I love this. There's one more question that I would like to ask you that I ask everyone who comes on the show. And that is, what is one piece of advice you would give someone when they're first starting out that would help them in their business be bolder, be louder, and make waves?
My advice is there is something that you do really, really well. And if you are yourself, your most authentic self, and you put yourself out there and just be you, which is hard, right? But just be you. That is the brilliance that other people love you for. And sometimes it's easy to overlook what that superpower is because it's comes so natural to you that you don't even realize you do it. So it's like really stopping and taking that awareness. You don't even realize you do it. And when you start to recognize yourself for that value that you bring, that is what people are paying you for. It isn't all the other stuff. It's just being the most you that you can be. Now, yes, there's a lot of strategy you can put around it, but let go of perfection. Let it be messy. Learn along the way. And if anybody is judging you for not being good enough, so to say, you don't want them as clients anyways. They will make your life miserable because as hard as they're judging you, they're judging themselves times 10. So have compassion. So just let it be messy. Be yourself. Recognize yourself for what you're really great at. And that is what people will love you for.
Oh, I love that. Alecia, I could sit and talk to you all day. We've had many calls that go very long.
I know.
But we are going to wrap this up today. Where can our listeners find more information about you online?
So where I want to send everybody is actually to the mapping process that I use for Immunity to Change, because it's going to help every single person who's sitting there going like, okay, what's my next cut? And it doesn't matter if you're new or you're like already built your $500,000 business. There's always like another level that you're going to hit a plateau. And so I'm going to send you to the mapping that we use to reveal what big assumptions you're making about the way the world works and yourself that are stopping you from getting to whatever your next cut or your next level is in your business, whatever that looks like. So go to consciousedge.com/be bold, BEBOLD, be bold. And that will take you right to that mapping training. This is the same training that I use with my clients inside of the program, and it will be very eye-opening for a lot of people.
Oh, awesome. I will link that up in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for being here. This was so much fun.
Oh, thank you for having me. Definitely loved talking to you, Laura, and so excited that you're being visible.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the show notes at lauracomark.com/podcast. And if you're ready to turn your website into a marketing machine, get more sales, save time, and simplify the back end of your business, grab my free resource, Power Integrations for your website. Head on over to lauracomark.com/power. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe. And also, I'll just love you forever if you leave me a review. It helps get this podcast in front of other people that can help inspire. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next week. Bye now.